the bitter end. I really appreciate it. Sorry, this is using Reveal.js, exported from org mode, clearly. So, but for some reason the title is insanely big. Anyway, so thanks for coming. My name is Erik Hetzner. I've been using Emacs for a long time. And so I currently work for the Public Library of Science, which is an open access science publisher. So we publish like 30,000 articles a year across like 8 journals. I probably got the number wrong, but it's a really cool organization, and we publish mostly bioscience stuff. So I don't understand almost any of it, or I understand none of it because I last took biology in high school. But you know, it's great to see the kind of stuff that's being published, and it's all online for free. So that's great. And before that, I worked for 8 years at the California Digital Library, which is part of the University of California system, and it's basically a digital library. They provide like digital library services for the 10 campuses, the University of California system. So the point of all of that is that I've been working, I'm not an academic or a scholar, but I've been working with them for a long time, with academics and librarians, and you know, I think I have some perspective on what they're doing and what they want. Yeah, so that's that. So the thing I wanted to, the goal of this talk basically is to say that I think scientists and humanists, scholars, they need much better tools than they have. I mean, the tools that they have are not very good. I was telling someone earlier that 95% of our submissions for journal articles are written in Microsoft Word. You know, which isn't that bad, but it's not very good either. I mean, it's not the greatest tool for managing your references, for dealing with figures, for dealing with data, and all of that sort of thing. And I also want to suggest that the needs that scholars have and the needs that programmers have are actually remarkably similar. At least there's a lot of overlap in the stuff that we do. And if there's any people who are not programmers here or who are not Emacs users, which I know there aren't, it's just I want to suggest that Emacs might be a tool that works for you.
Can you hit that button?
Oh, yes.
Thanks. Also, can you make this a bit smaller? Apparently it's not showing up all the way on the screen.
That's probably
bigger.
too small.
That should be okay. Yeah.
Good. Thanks. I've just completely ignored that little thing. So I just had a few misgivings about this, and I think probably everyone here kind of has similar misgivings about Emacs. I've never really been an Emacs advocate. You know, I'm not out there trying to convert people, knocking on their doors and like suggesting that they try it out. Which is partially because in the past I think Emacs has been kind of horrible to use and get set up and the whole business, and it's just an alternative universe of programs that, like, you know, I think Daniel really nailed that, like brought that home, and it's just like, what does yank mean? I don't know what yank means, you know, that doesn't even make sense, and it's hard to figure it out. So I was just never really sure if Emacs would work for normal people. And I'm kind of am a tools nerd. I get caught up in tweaking my tools and my setup, and I think probably all of us do. But I'm told that normal people just want to get stuff done, and they don't really care too much about that. I mean, that's what I'm told anyway. But on the other hand, like, the forward movement in Emacs in the past couple of years is just amazing. We have Melpa, we have ELPA, we have tests. Like, people are actually writing testing, you know, in ERT. Their packages are tested, at least to some extent. And we have these new sort of experiments in Emacs user interfaces, like Magit and Helm, that are really different, and they're amazing. I mean, like, the Magit interface converted me to Git. it's so much better than the Git command line interface. And I just want to tell people to use it, but they don't use Emacs, so it doesn't work. But I keep looking for like a good Git UI that's as good as that. That's not an Emacs thing. And also, I feel like Emacs has been beamed to us from an alternative universe of stable, long-term, extensible software. Like, people are used to stuff that just, like I got this cool new app on my phone and it's gone 2 years later, 2 months later, And Emacs has been around for GNU Emacs has been around for 30 years, and Emacs has been around for longer. So there's not a lot like that. And it really has a commitment to stability and to a long-term approach, I think, to software development. And it's here, and it exists, and it solves problems that people have. So that's kind of cool. I mean, it's not letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. It's like, it's here. So yeah, as I said earlier, I think that scholars and programmers kind of have overlapping needs to some extent. So here's some things that I think Emacs handles really well, like the long-term aspect. I think as programmers, we have jobs where we're constantly learning new languages or new frameworks or new tools, but because we're constantly learning new stuff, we don't necessarily want to have to relearn everything in our life. So like Emacs is there for us. It's like a thing that isn't changing. You might move from Haskell. Well, you probably move to Haskell, but then you probably can't get a job, so you move to something else. And but you still have the same editor, right? And that's awesome. And Emacs is a tool that grows with you. Like, you get to, you start out with something, and then you add this other thing on, and you kind of get entangled in its web. But it also, develops with you, and you learn new stuff, and you get, you can go back to your old programming mode, and you have your new programming mode, and you hack on Helm, or you hack on some new, selection system. And it's just, it's a great tool, as I'm sure you all agree. And so another thing I think we have in common with authors, and especially with scholarly authors, is that we're kind of constantly refactoring our code, and we're reorganizing, and they're kind of doing the same thing. Like, it's not like On the Road. Jack Kerouac wrote On the Road supposedly on paper that was taped to each other, so just one long stream of consciousness. No, like, people write stuff and then they rearrange it, and like they take a paragraph here and they move it here, and they take a sentence here and they kill the other sentence, and it's just like a constant, moving stuff around, reorganizing. Version control. This is something that authors are not currently using, but they really should be. Like, they need to keep track of their, a document as it changes over time, as it becomes, as they add stuff, as they start here, and like 5 years later they're here, because that's how long sometimes the scholarly publishing lifetime can last. From like starting something to actually getting it in print, years. And collaboration. Like, most scientists do not author an article by themselves. They author it with other people. And right now what they do is they take a Word document and they send it to someone, and then that person sends it back with changes, and then they make their changes, and they send it back with changes too, and they send it back, and it's madness. And compilation. Like, I think most authors probably aren't thinking about it like this now, but basically they're kind of compiling their documents, right? Like, they need to generate their citations, right? And that's like a cross-reference, and it generates in different citation formats depending on what journal you're submitting to. So that's kind of a compilation process. Generating figures and graphs and charts, like that's kind of the same thing. That's compiling stuff, basically. Managing cross-references and targeting multiple platforms. Like, I think people now want to do, they want to put stuff up on the web maybe, and they want to target e-readers, or they don't know what kind of submission format the journal they're authoring for supports. Like, is it have to be in LaTeX? Is it going to have to be in Word? They don't really know. So it's kind of a compilation process. And then coding, like a lot of scientists now spend a lot of their time coding, or so I'm told. Computational biology is gaining a lot. Physics, obviously, computer science, even more obviously, data science, people working with data, a lot of people doing R work, a lot of people doing just general statistics and that kind of thing. Sorry, if I get vague, it's because I understand, I think, like a lot of their processes, but I don't always understand what they're doing. So I'm just like, oh yeah, data science, I hear that's really big, and they do all this stuff, and they make cool data. Anyway, also, this is something I thought about when I was watching Howard talk just now, because I was like, man, I was hearing about Chef and not Chef, sorry, Salt. I'm like, yeah, maybe you could set up that same sort of thing, and Salt, like they're looking at orchestration and applying running commands on different servers and stuff. But like Babel is here and it works right now. And whether or not Salt becomes a perfect system for running commands and setting up multiple servers, Howard can write his stuff in Babel and it works right now, and he can connect to a system and he can execute stuff on it, which I had no idea he could do. That's just amazing. And also, like, here's something else that scholars need that they just don't have at all, is this sort of, this is actually kind of my grab bag of everything else, but it makes a certain amount of sense, like completion, right? We're all used to, hey, like, I'm going to, start writing, calling a method on this object, and I want to get completion of what the possible methods are to call on that object. That kind of thing is what people are doing when they're like, oh, I want to reference this document, right? Or I want to reference this work. I want to reference this other article. They want completion on that kind of stuff. They don't want to have to type out the whole article. They don't want to have to remember the BibTeX site key for that article. They want, it to just work. And just handling cross-references, like being able to move between this part of your document to the other part of your document without needing to search it or whatever. Like building, when you're working on a project and you have like 1 million files in that project, and you have data and you have images and you have all this other stuff that you're needing to manage, we use Projectile or Helm to search through all of that. We use ACK or AG or something to grep it all, and we're not using grep, but we're finding stuff in it, and people need that kind of stuff, and they don't really have it. They're like, oh, where was that? Where did I put my notes for that? Let me search through that. And then this is just becoming a really big thing, which is reproducible research, and it's basically the idea that the data and code should be published along with the article, right? So if you're publishing a scientific article that's an analysis of some data, you want the data to be available, right? So that's kind of the core, the basis of it. But moreover, you want the code that you use to be available, and you want people to be able to download the code and run it and have it actually work, without them needing to jump through 1 million hoops. So that's becoming a really big thing, and I think of it kind of as bringing software engineering to science. Anyway. And the solutions are similar to literate programming, which Howard was also talking about. So some of the solutions out there, like org mode, obviously, something called knitr, which is basically Markdown plus R, the programming language, like intertwining those together to create reproducible research, and IPython, which is huge. And I think its successor, which they're working on now, Jupyter, which is kind of an extended version of IPython. But IPython allows you, in a lot of ways, like org mode plus Babel, to mix text and executable stuff and charts and all of that. There is integration with Emacs, but I could never get it to work. So packages that, all right, I have to go up. Packages that now exist. I just want to show you some packages that exist and get you excited about them. Org mode, which is Emacs's secret weapon, and it's like why people come to Emacs, I think, because it's just so amazing. And a lot of you may not know that Carsten Doming is an astronomer. That's his day job. So obviously you've got the connection there to science. And Babel, which Howard was really kind enough to completely negate my small demonstration of it with just all the magic. But one more thing that you can do, this is just a little animated GIF showing like somebody, or me, but I copied it from somewhere else, putting together some Python code to generate a matplotlib graph, executing the code, and then getting the code in a PDF, right? So if you've never used Babel, this is the kind of stuff that you can do with it. And when you export that document, you'll get an embedded PDF, and it will reevaluate the code when you export. So it's really cool.
That's the same thing as IPython.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's IPython in Emacs, except instead of just working with Python, it works with R, it works with Shell, it works with Lisp, it works with anything at all. So it's really cool. And this is just another demo of a project by OrgRef, which is written by John Kitchin, which is like integrating reference management and citation management in org mode, and it's really cool. And then also Helm BibTeX, which is a BibTeX or what do they call it, provider for Helm. So this is just, you type org, it's a little fast, but you type a key, you type a search thing, you get a citation. You can view the citation. You can jump to the BibTeX entry right there. You can actually jump to the PDF if you have your PDFs organized right, and you get this, PDF opened in Emacs, but it could also be opened in Acrobat or Vince or whatever your PDF reader is. So just really cool integration of org mode with the reference management that scholars need. And this doesn't really have a lot to do with Emacs, but if you haven't seen PANDOC, you should check it out. PANDOC calls itself like the Swiss Army knife of conversions and of document conversion, and it's pretty amazing. And it now has an org mode importer, so you can take org mode and you can export to other stuff. Although it's confusing because org mode also has an exporter. So this is part of the problem we're faced with. We have a million different solutions to do. It's a problem and a strength, but we have a million different solutions to convert org mode into LaTeX. But PANDOC is really solid, and a lot of people who don't use Emacs are using it, right? Because they decided that they want to be able to store their documents in Markdown in a Git repository and track them like that when they're writing. And even if they're not using Emacs, they're getting a much better experience because they can take that Markdown and they can turn it into LaTeX, they can turn it into docx, they can turn it into ODT, they can turn it into a PDF file, and they get citation management and all this cool stuff. So it's worth checking out, and I think Emacs would do well to integrate with external tools like that more.
You can bring it into org mode, which is really helpful.
Oh yeah. I didn't even think of that, but yeah.
If it gives you some really messed up HTML file, you can read it into org.
Yeah. And I mean, it'd be great to get Emacs integration for that. I mean, directly, so you just drag and drop or something. This is a little irrelevant, but it's just worth kind of understanding is that there's kind of two worlds right now, I think, in the scholarly, scientific, and humanities publishing worlds that are interested in all of this kind of stuff in plain text and getting text and getting away from Word and getting away from that whole tool chain. And that's sort of the people who can use LaTeX and the people who have to submit their stuff in Word format to publishers, right? So there's kind of like the people who are doing stuff in Markdown and then using PANDOC to convert. Maybe they're using org mode and converting to ODT, and then converting that to docx somehow. And then there's the people who are just in LaTeX. And LaTeX, like the Emacs support in LaTeX is amazing. I don't really use it, but I'm told it's amazing, and it seems pretty amazing. So I think if that, like, that's great, that's almost done. But I think like this other world of sort of more plain text stuff without all the LaTeX. I was going to say baggage. I don't mean that because I really like tech and I really like LaTeX, but it's complicated and not a lot of people use it, and it's nobody. I don't think I've ever known anyone who took their notes in tech, right? Like you might take your notes in org mode, you might take your notes in, you know, Markdown, but no one's ever just, I'm sure someone has, but generally people don't break out like LaTeX to do their note taking. Oops. And I'm way ahead of time, but I'm okay with that because I've reached the conclusion, which is basically just to reiterate that I think, you know, scientists and humanists like need better tools, and you know, if you're looking for stuff to do that is helpful to people, to other people, I think like working on tools like that is great. But it's so overwhelming too, because the you know, the whole world, it's just like, it's a huge amount of work, right? But if you start from Emacs, like you're starting in a pretty good place. You've already got a great editor. You know, all you need to do is add a few things on top to support this population. And I think we have really similar needs. I really do think, you know, completion, cross-referencing, compilation, storing stuff in plain text, storing stuff, you know, managing things in version control. These are things that both of these populations need. And scholars, I think, are beginning to understand that. And this is just when I was doing a little research for this, I came across this. It's a little irrelevant, but it kind of sums up my approach to Emacs, which is like that, you know, when you're trying to teach something like Emacs or trying to get other people to use stuff like Emacs, is that, you know, as Greg Wilson says, he founded an organization called Software Carpentry that teaches basic software engineering skills to scientists. So basically they teach like version control, the command line, and possibly something else, but this really basic stuff so that scientists can become halfway decent software engineers and be able to use the tools that we've built, which frankly are kind of crappy too. And we should do more, as he says, we should do more than gently explain to students that our antiquated tools will eventually make them more productive, which they will. But we should apologize for not building something better and promise to try harder. Because I think people deserve better tools. And the stuff we have works, and it's good, and it'll make people's lives easier. And I feel that way about Emacs, but I think we need to make it better. So that's that. Thank you. And this is further work if you want to get involved with stuff. And I will also take questions.
I'm just curious, of the various academics who are not mentioned in Emacs has that
You mean all of them?
mentioned this too, how interested do they seem to be?
Well, like I said, I mostly keep quiet about it. I'm not an evangelist, and I mostly, I've written some stuff to interact with like the Zotero bibliographic manager, and so I mostly have just built stuff for people and not really evangelized it. So I think that, I asked a question on the org mode mailing list about this talk, and the people who are using it said, this is, org mode is amazing, and I can't imagine doing my work without it. But, I don't know how to drag people to that. I'm not sure, dragging is the wrong word. I don't know how to convince people. I think that all the stuff that Daniel was talking about is exactly the kind of stuff that applies, which is like, good tutorials and maybe, curated sets of packages, because out of the box, I've never used them, but people seem to love them, and it's great that, Emacs Prelude or Spacemacs or whatever, these out of the box, like, this provides all the tools that you need to solve this problem is great. But yeah, I don't really have any ideas about that.
You know a guy named Jacob Skolbach?
No.
Oh, okay. I don't remember the name of his program and site, but it can convert between a lot of different graphic formats and making a
cool
database. So that seems like. So is there a divide between biologists and math, physics? Because I thought that all papers were written in tech,
No.
Like in the nav and CS world, it's like that.
Yeah. No, it's definitely. I mean, the some of the work. I mean, we're doing at my work. We're doing research. I'm not doing the research, but my colleagues are doing it onto like the different worlds of academics and like what they expect in their practices, and it's not just document formats that are different. It's just like everything's different. Like their methods of peer review are different. Everybody does stuff differently. And they all think because they're like, well, I'm a biologist. Everybody does it like this, or like I'm a computational biologist. Everybody does it like this, or I'm a computational biologist who focuses on this, and they do things differently, but they think everyone does it the same way. So yeah, the practices are really different.
So is there like motion towards tech?
No, probably away from it. I mean, I really love tech, but. I mean, our process, we accept tech papers, and then we convert them to something else. Like we don't use tech to publish our stuff. I mean, the ACM uses tech, right? I mean, it's all tech. AMS uses tech, but yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's way ahead of its time, but yeah.
We talk about scholars. Do you mainly mean scientific scholars? Because the liberal arts people, they're writing all these theses.
Yeah.
Any of them using anything? Like
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so the question was, I'm talked about scholars, but I mostly talked about scientists, and do people who are writing the liberal arts or humanities use these tools? Some of them do, like there's definitely org mode users in the humanities. I think a lot of the same things apply there. Mostly having to do with reference management, like, although as people who are in the social sciences obviously will be drawn to stuff, doing R, especially like sociology, doing data stuff. So I think there's a lot, there's definitely an attraction. Could be I would hope an attraction for those people to use tools like this, but I don't really know. I have a history background, but I don't, it's not like I learned org mode in my, history classes or something. Okay.
So
IRC questions.
Yes, there are some IRC questions.
Cool.
So one from Tured. Did you get Markdown mode and the equations to display at the same time? So that's their question.
I don't really use Markdown mode.
Okay, so I guess no, because if you don't use it, then you wouldn't get them to display.
Yeah, I mean that's the cool thing about org mode, right? Is
Yeah.
you just type your equations right there in tech format, and bam, everything works.
Yeah, and then there's questions about your workflow. So Kaushalmodi asks, I would like to see the org source code of the slides and the aux reveal setup.
Oh,
And
yeah,
Tured asked the same thing.
They're online. Or at least no, I put them online this morning. So yeah, they're on GitLab.
Okay.
And they're mirrored on GitHub. But
cool. Can you
I like
post them to the
main-
IRC channel
Yeah,
after?
yeah, sure. So
And then I wanted to pick out one of the comments. Kaushal Modi also said, pointed out when you said we need tools that grow with us, that they really liked that comment. And that also resonated with me because you've been using Emacs for 20 years and it doesn't seem like Emacs seems like an eternal type of software almost, except like it has an ever shrinking like base of users.
yeah, I mean I think that kind of stuff is always like a tension, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you want to keep using things, but you want it, you want to learn new stuff and get new interfaces and take advantage of new things. And I think Emacs has been so amazing in the past couple of years with new user interfaces and,
Yeah.
and I mean just new ways of interacting with it that are so cool, and I don't know, make me happy.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
And I do want to give it a shout out to Stefan, the maintainer of Emacs. Emacs, like in every single like minor bump, all these new like usability features come in. and like I'll use like Emacs 23, and all of like my favorite functions like aren't there, and so it's like 30-year-old software, but
Yeah.
in just the last couple of years, like it's come like a really long way.
Yeah, well, and to Nicholas's like presentation this morning, because
Yeah.
I think the underlying code is getting so much, is improving. You
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
There's been real movement. That's
Yeah.
great.
But yeah. Any other questions in the audience? Yeah, that was an awesome presentation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's the connection.
Yeah. So we have time for lightning talks starting now, and we'll just go into